Good evening and welcome to our 6th National Budget Consultation for the 2026 Budget Presentation. I will be your Master of Ceremony for this evening's consultation. My name is Dwight Sampson. I am the Corporate Communications Officer in the Ministry of Finance. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this evening's consultation. We thank all of you that is in person or in the room for making the journey to join us. And for those of you in the diaspora and online, we welcome you as well. And we thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have each and every one of you as we begin to shape the future of our country, as we begin to chat the way forward, and we listen to your suggestions, your opinions, concerns, queries, etc. So as I call this evening's consultation to order, we must first acknowledge the presence of Almighty God and thank Him so much for the blessings that He has bestowed upon us, Grenada as a country, and all of us as Grenadians. So to do that, I welcome the Chief Corporate Communications Officer within the Ministry of Finance, Russell John, to do the opening prayer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sampson. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we all stand? Let's pray. Father, we give you thanks, we give you praise, we give you glory, we give you honor. We recognize you as sovereign Lord and ruler above all things. We thank you, O Lord God, that we are able to gather here this afternoon to discuss matters of national importance. We thank you, O Lord, for the wisdom present in this room. We thank you for the insights that will be revealed to us. And we thank you, O Lord, for the contributions that will be made. We pray, O Lord, and commit this afternoon's session into your hands. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen. Please remain standing for the national anthem.
Ourselves to thee, heads, hearts, and hands in unity to reach our destiny, ever conscious of God, being proud of our heritage. May we with faith and courage aspire, build, advance, as one people, one family. God bless our nation.
Thank you so much. You may have your seats. It is one thing to be born, but it's an extra special thing to be born a Grenadian. And we must all be grateful for that. So tonight, we are in Big Parish, what is commonly called the breadbasket of our nation. And I don't know, I feel right at home. I'm not sure. I heard MP Thomas is a very good cook, so I may just stay up here. We want to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister for Economic Development, Economic Development, Planning, ICT, Creative Economy, Agriculture, Lands, Fisheries, and the Cooperative, the Honorable Lennox Andrews. We want to recognize the Minister of Education, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, MP and the Minister for Youth, Sports, and Mental Health and Religious Affairs, Honorable Delma Thomas. We also want to recognize Dr. Tessa Sincere, former senator and caretaker. Say welcome to them. So just give a little wave so we would know. Put your hands together for them. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, we can't have them in the room and not have them say something. So I would first call MP Lennox Andrews to just bring some greetings.
So thank you very much indeed, Mr. Dwight Sampson, my student, I think, of economics many years ago. So I am very proud of him. I recognize my cabinet colleagues, Ministers Andrew and Thomas, and of course our caretaker, Dr. Sincere. We have with us our budget officer, Mr. Hazard, and of course I do recognize our head table, Ms. Adams and Ms. Andrews. You're also Andrews, right? And to you, the audience, I say a very pleasant good evening. Thanks for being here. As was stated, it is the 6th National Budget Consultation. You are required to voice your opinion on matters that you consider to be of importance to your parish and, of course, to your country. As a guideline, I want to say to you that you should focus on those things, to use a very broad term, that affect your constituency or your village or your people. There may be in your village a number of things that you want to get done. It could be a road, it could be a hospital, it could be a school, it could be a slipper drain, it could be a by road. But there must be something in your constituents that has been affecting you for a very long time. And you will want for those things to be addressed. And now is the time for you to expound and indicate what are those burning issues that affect your life in your constituency. So as politicians, as your representatives, we can address them. And the instrument that we use to address those things is the budget. It's the budget. That's the instrument that we use to address those issues that affect you. And in addressing them, what we are in fact doing is helping to improve your lives and to helping to improve the conditions under which you live. So with these few words, I look forward to an active participation. Feel free and be relaxed. Every comment and every suggestion is important, and therefore feel free and be at ease, and don't be afraid to state those factors or those issues that you would like to see get addressed in the 2026 budget. For in so doing, you will be helping to improve the lives of your constituents, and on a whole, helping to improve the lives of all Grenadians. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. And as soon as I sat down, I got a text saying, call the man ministry, right? So he's a Minister of Economic Development, Planning, Tourism, Creative Economy, Culture, Agriculture, Lands, Forestry, Blue Economy, Marine Resources, and Cooperatives. Do you sleep? Hard-working gentleman. So we move from Andrews, and we're going to Andrew. So put your hands together and welcome Senator the Honorable David Andrew, Minister for Education, to bring some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Allow me to acknowledge my ministerial colleagues and Dr. Sincere, members of the head table, Mr. Hazard, and distinguished participants. I'm happy that you have come this evening because it shows that you are interested in the nation's business. You see, it's easy to probably criticize, it's easy to say things, but this consultative process is evidence of the government's desire to engage you at every step of the process. Now, we have the technical experts with all the financial background and the budgeting expertise to just put figures together and do a budget. But we are concerned and interested in ensuring that when those figures are put together, they are reflective of what concerns you in your various communities. And that's why we are having these consultations, so we can take on board, and these are experts and technocrats in the ministries, and the Ministry of Finance in particular, can make them be brought to bear on what figures are allocated to which ministries for what. And so I'm happy you've come. It underscores the government's commitment to consultation, genuine consultation, and I'm encouraging you, like Minister Andrews said, to use it as an opportunity to voice the things that you see that matter to you. With the breadbasket, what's happening there? There are key things infrastructurally, what's happening there. You raise them, and I'm guaranteeing you, we as the government representatives and your representatives, we will ensure that we agitate and advocate to see them happen through our technocrats in the Ministry of Finance. So thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to stimulating and engaging presentation and engagement from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. And while we were here, Senator, the Honorable Gloria Ann Thomas stepped in, so you want to recognize her. There she is. I want to welcome you, Senator. And the next minister I would welcome is a very passionate lady who always speaks her mind, and she really motivates me a lot. I wanted to say that for a while. For a chance to get and welcome the Minister for Mental Health, Religious Affairs, with a special focus on Mungay Psychiatric Hospital, and Minister for Sports and Youth Affairs, Honorable Delma Thomas. Put your hands together and welcome her.
My cabinet colleagues, Senator David Andrew, MP Lennox Andrew, Senator Gloria Thomas, caretaker for St. Andrew Northeast, Tessa Sincere, Ministry of Finance officials, the technocrats who are presenting here this afternoon. Pleasant good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to the people of St. Andrew who are here this evening. Last year, I was called, and in my mind, you know, sometimes when you don't have good food, you take in front. So we have strengths and we have weaknesses as human beings. And so just come in and talk, in most cases, is not a strength I have. So when I knew I was coming, I prepared knowing that I might be called. So I want to begin by thanking each of you for taking the time to be here. Your presence is a clear sign that you care deeply about the future of St. Andrew and by extension, your country. As a member of Parliament, I firmly believe that the progress cannot be achieved in isolation. It must be built on dialogue, partnership, and the collective wisdom of our people. This is why today's consultation is so valuable. It gives us the opportunity not only to share ideas, but also to listen to the concerns, challenges, and aspiration of our people. And our people are the ones who matter the most. We are at a critical point where we must shape solutions that respond to real needs of our citizens. Whether it's in education, youth development, healthcare, sports, and agriculture, because we are in the breadbasket of Grenada, and so agriculture must concern us very much. And the truth is, we have the Minister of Agriculture in St. Andrew, so that is also very important. Healthcare, sports, employment, or community infrastructure. Government alone cannot address every issue. But together, with your input and commitment, we can chart a path that reflects fairness, opportunity, and progress for all. I encourage every one of us present here to be honest, respectful, and let's discuss the development of our parish. Let's identify those areas of concern you want to see in the budget. That is the reason for the consultation. So we are here to consult. And the reason why you came out here, because there are areas of concern, or maybe you want to praise the government for things that was done already, but you also want to identify what needs to be done to ensure that big parish really big outside there. So we have 4 of us here who are representing the government, and you have the technical team who will be presenting. But the truth is, we are here representing the government, and we'll also be able to answer on various issues that you may have questions or concerns about. I thank you.
Thank you so much, MP. And you see why she motivates me? She came prepared. So we're not sticking, we want to move on. So we welcome to the podium Senator the Honorable Gloria Ann Thomas. She's the Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Senator, we call you to give some greetings. She doesn't look prepared, but she's a good speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Cabinet colleagues, Sister Tessa Sincere, members from the Ministerial of Finance, technical team, and you, the people of St. Andrews Northwest. St. Andrews in general. Sorry about that. You have to excuse me, eh? St. Andrews in general. It is really indeed a very pleasant happening here this evening to have so many of you out to take part in this consultation. As a government, we believe in consulting with our people and giving people the opportunity to be part of the process of planning and development. We believe in putting people first. So we don't sit in a cabinet and make decisions for you. We come to you and we consult with you. And this is what is the essence of democracy. We need to hear from you, and we want to take on board your suggestions, your concerns, and whatever ideas that you have that can develop our country, our community, St. Andrews in particular in this instance. And we trust that you will be open, you will be frank, and you will be able to leave with us information that we can work on. We are preparing the budget. We are gathering information to prepare the next cycle budget, and your input is very vital. That is why we're here this evening. And so it is your opportunity to share, it's your opportunity to engage and to give us some guidelines as how you expect to see this country move forward. I was expecting to see more people, but I guess as much, some people prefer to stay behind the Facebook, some with false profile, and to make the negative comments. But I think this year is an occasion for them to come and voice their opinion and to set the record straight so that we could be on a straight path in our delivery to the country. So once again, I want to thank you for coming, and I encourage you to be open, as I said, be frank, and let us discuss the business of this country and the development of St. Andrews in particular. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. So that covers our ministerial lineup. I want to now acknowledge my colleagues in the Ministry of Finance. We have the Chief Policy Analyst in the Policy Unit, Mrs. Tonya Adams Samuel. So just wave so we can see who you are. We have the Acting Chief Budget Officer, Mr. Justin Hazard. We have the Chief Corporate Communications Officer who did the opening prayer, Mr. Russell John. He's in the back. We also have the Communication and Information Officer specifically for the Inland Revenue Department, Ms. Nikita McDonald. She's in the back. We also have Budgeting Officer 2, Ms. Andrews, Akiba Andrews. You will hear from her, and of course, yours truly. So without any further ado, we want to get into the budget unit presentation, and that gives you an understanding of the budgeting process and what will happen before the Minister of Finance reads the 2026 budget later down this year. So to do that, I welcome Ms. Akiba Andrews, Budgeting Officer in the Budgeting Unit of the Ministry of Finance, to do that for you. Put your hands together for her.
Good night, everyone. With protocols already established, I would introduce myself. I am Akiba Andrews. I am a budget officer at the Ministry of Finance Budget Unit. And tonight we're here in St. Andrews not just to speak about numbers, but to listen to your ideas and your concerns as highlighted by the previous opening statements by the ministers. So the purpose of tonight's consultation is simply to give you a chance to provide us with feedback, ideas, concerns for the national budget for 2026. So your suggestions tonight helps the government to create the priorities for the national budget. So a budget is like a household plan. So just as how families have, or they create budgets to spend on rent, groceries, bills, the government too so has to create a budget to spend for hospitals, schools, roads, pensions, and many more. This can be defined as the allocation of the financial resources to provide assistance and services to you and to improve, your well-being. So when we speak of revenue, we speak of what the country earns. And we earn money from things like taxes, fees, loans, and even grants. When we speak of expenditure, we speak of what the country spends. So we have two different types of expenditure. We have what we call recurrent expenditure, and we also have what we call capital expenditure. Now, when we speak of recurrent, we're speaking of day-to-day spendings. So it's things like what covers teachers' salaries, salaries for teachers, police officers, nurses, also electricity, water bills for schools, hospitals, and medicine for the clinics. When we speak of capital expenditure, we speak of the long-term investments that the governments make. So in a household, it might be to save for your child's education in the future. However, for the government, it is things like repairing major roads, upgrading our hospitals, and even building new schools. Now, in the budget, the government has to basically state where all its source of funds will come from. Some of the sources of funds that we have are loans, savings, grants, investments, and even recurrent revenue. All right, so I'm going to just highlight why your input matters here tonight. So the budget reflects, as stated before, priorities of the people. If government spends more than it earns, we have what we call a deficit. And in these cases, we either have to borrow or we have to cut costs. However, on the other hand, if government earns more than it spends, then we have what we call a surplus, which is extra money to invest in our priorities. By sharing your views here tonight, you help us to decide what areas get priority, especially in the parish of St. Andrews. So earlier I mentioned that the government has to invest in long-term investments. And when we speak of long-term investments, it is divided into two larger frameworks, which is the National Sustainable Development Plan 2035, and this is the Medium-Term Development Plan. We also have Vision 75, which is Grenada's long-term goal for the year 2075. Now, your contributions tonight helps to ensure that St. Andrew's development is part of that bigger picture. Now, I'm going to take you through understanding the budget as a process. Now, like any other process, the budget is guided by a set of rules and regulations that keep us accountable. Some of those rules and regulations are the Public Finance Act, which sets the rules for how the government plans, spends, and reports its money. The Fiscal Responsibility Act, which keeps the government debt and spending sustainable through fiscal rules. We also have the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act, and this ensures fair and transparent value for government contracts. Now, the budget process. The budget process is divided into 3 different phases. Phase 1 is the preparation phase, and at this phase, the government looks at how much money is coming in and what it plans to do with the money that it gets. So within this phase, we have the first 4 steps of the budget process, which is where the Macroeconomic Policy Unit develops projections for the country's economy and government finances. So that's things like the GDP growth, inflation, and revenue trends, which Ms. Samuel will touch on later. We also have, well, after this step, we go into the creation of the MTFF, and this sets the spending limit. That is how the government can realistically spend without exceeding its revenue. This takes us to step 3, which is the preparation of the budget framework paper and medium-term economic and fiscal strategy. And this shows the government's spending and how it will manage the resources within a 3 to 5 year period. Final step of phase 1 is the preparation and submission of the budget call circular. Now, this basically outlines the budget calendar, instructions, procedures, processes, and templates for preparation and submission of the detailed budget estimate for each vote. And when I speak of a vote here, I'm speaking of the different line ministries within the government. Now, for each vote pertaining to revenue as well as current and capital expenditure for the national budget of 2026, and also 2 forward years, which is 2027 and 2028. So we're finished with phase 1 and we're in phase 2. Now, phase 2 is the consulting and drafting part of the budget process. Now, this is where you, the citizens, come in, because we hold what we call public and sectorial consultations. Now, in the public and sectorial consultations, the ministry engages with its different stakeholders, community representatives, private sectors, civil society, to create a budget that can mirror the economic and social development of its people and, by extension, the country. Step 6 of the budget process is where each line ministry develops and submits a detailed budget estimate to the Ministry of Finance. After they would have submitted that, it takes us to step 7, which is where the Ministry of Finance conducts consultations with the different line ministries and departments. And this is done to ensure that we have internal coordination, that the government spending aligns with national goals, and also to ensure that we have accurate budgeting. Now, once these consultations is held, we then have, well, it's revised, it's adjusted, and then it is finalized. This takes us to step 8 of the budget process, which is where the draft budget is presented to Cabinet and the Parliamentary Finance Committee. We move on to phase 3 of the budget process, which is approval and implementation. When we speak of approval, we're basically speaking of Parliament debates. They debate and approve the budget. And implementation is where the ministry spends the funds and the Ministry of Finance check to make sure that it is being used according to what was stated in the different budget for the line ministries. Step 9 of the process, the Ministry of Finance presents the draft budget estimate speech to Parliament, and this enables for transparency and accountability. Takes us to step 10, which is where the Parliament debates and approves the budget through what we call an appropriation act. And that takes us to step 11 of the process, which is the issuance of the general warrant. Now, the general warrant is a document that authorizes government's expenditure from the consolidated funds. So basically, once the Appropriation Act is enacted after the appropriation bill, the government now has legal authority to spend. And that takes us to the step before the last, step 12, which is budget execution. Now, once the budget has been approved, the Ministry of Finance issues guidelines for implementing the estimates of revenue and expenditure. At this point, the ministries and departments can begin to utilize the allocated funds per the guidelines. Final step of the process is budget monitoring and reporting. Now, the Ministry of Finance, through the budget units, oversees implementation and monitors budget execution. This also provides allocations for the first quarter to the different ministries and departments. And under this step, the budget units issues quarterly ceilings by the 10th of the month before the new quarter begins. Now, earlier I would have spoke on the approval of the budget. I'm going to take you through the approval process. First group of persons that approves the national budget is the cabinet approval, and that usually happens in October. We also have the Parliamentary Finance Committee approval, which happens at least 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. That's usually end of October to early November. We have the presentation of the national budget, which is done in November or December. We have the House of Representatives. They debate and approve the budget also in November and December. Then finally, we have the Senate. They debate and approve the budget, and this happens in December. Now, the roles and responsibilities of the budget unit as it relates to the budget process. So the budget unit is responsible for coordinating and managing the development of the annual estimates of revenue and expenditure, as well as the supplementary budget. We are also responsible for ensuring that the budget cycle or calendar is adhered throughout the entire process. We are also responsible for advising the government on the fiscal implications of budget proposals and related implementation issues. Finally, we are responsible for, upon approval of the Parliament, the budget unit monitors and implements and executes the budget. So we basically ensure that the different line ministries do what they say they would do or accomplish by the budget that they would have issued to Ministry of Finance. Now, the national budget is the government's most important tool, but in order for it to be effective, it has to reflect the real needs of the people. So tonight is your chance to say, what does St. Andrews need most? Whether it's jobs, whether it's roads, whether it's improvement in agriculture, whether it's implementation of youth programs, or even infrastructure. Some of the areas that I would like us to think on as tonight's proceedings continue are: how can we improve youth and education? How can we improve job opportunities and the economy as a whole? How can we improve our culture and recreational activities? How can we also improve agriculture and fishing, and also health and community service? I urge you to think on these questions or these areas and engage in meaningful dialogues. And thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing your responses. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Andrews, for a very informative presentation. And I hope that you understand a bit of the process. So a budget is not just the elected MPs and ministers sitting in cabinet and decide, okay, well, this is what a budget will be. It goes through a process, and that process includes you. And this is the reason why we are here tonight, because we want to hear from you, right? So some of the points, key points mentioned by Ms. Andrew, is that there are limits to how much the government can spend and where the government can spend. The general warrant gives government the authority to spend. The issue of the general warrant is a part of the budget process. No budget, no warrant, no spending, no projects. And that does create problems. You know that, innit? Because we often say, well, what is the government doing? I don't see it. But you cannot see it if you don't go through the budgeting process. That gives government the authority to spend, right? So I want you to think on that as we get ready to understand the microeconomic process. And to present that to you tonight, we welcome the Chief Policy Analyst in the Ministry of Finance, Mrs. Tonya Adams Samuel, and she is going to present the microeconomic perspective to you tonight. Put your hands together for her as she comes.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. I've been doing budget consultations for quite some time now, and I'm happy to see so many of you here tonight, so thank you all so much for coming. And thank you to our listening audience online, those listening on GIS and YouTube. Good night to all. So this afternoon, we are going to talk about the macroeconomic context. And what is the macroeconomic context? It's everything that's happening in our economy, everything that you see around you, really. If you see construction activity, that's part of it. If you see activity in the agriculture sector, that's part of it. And then we're going to zoom in a little bit on government's fiscal performance. And what is that really? It's looking at government's total revenues and its expenditure. In the presentation tonight, I will first take a look at, we'll first take a look at the global environment. We look at the international and regional developments. Then we'll go zooming into Grenada's economy, the domestic economy, looking at real sector developments for the first quarter of the year. And then we look at the fiscal performance for the first 5 months of the year. And then we look at the medium term. And when we speak about the medium term, we're talking from 2026 into 2028. We'll then take a look at the downside risks, because even though we have these projections that we're going to tell you a little bit about, there are risks to achieving these projections. So we look at downside risk, and then of course we'll end the presentation with some key takeaways, and then of course highlighting some of the priorities of government in the 2026 national budget. So there's this report that the IMF usually issues. It's called the World Economic Outlook. And they characterize, as in they describe the global economy as being tenuous, showing tenuous resilience amid uncertainty. And this framing was very deliberate. What this means is really that there's high uncertainty at this time in the global environment. We know of tariffs. These are trade tensions. Geopolitical risks. We know about Israel and Palestine conflicts. We hear about rising fiscal pressures, looking at debt and all these other macro-fiscal issues. These cause high levels of uncertainty, and this, of course, will weigh on confidence and investment. Sorry. So while the global economy is holding steady, it remains exposed. Especially for Grenada, Grenada is a small open economy. It remains exposed to all of these issues and these shocks that happen in the global environment. So in the next slide, we're going to look at how growth is projected to unfold in the global economy. So global growth is projected to be 3% in 2025 and projected to edge up to about 3.1% in 2026, a modest upward revision, though still below the historical trends. And historically, what the report tells us is that global growth, and when we're talking about growth, we're talking about increase in output, this usually grows by an average of about 3.7%. So we're below global growth levels compared to the historical standards. Advanced economies such as the US, the UK, even Canada, remain on a modest recovery path. The United States, as we can see from the chart, is expected to grow by 1.9% in 2025, edging up to 2% in 2026. In the UK, with easing inflation and better consumer confidence, growth is expected to be around 1.2% in 2025, and in 2026, 1.4%. Emerging and developing economies, these are economies like China and even India, they are expected to lead the path, so to speak, in global recovery. China is holding its momentum at 4.8% in 2025 and tapering off, that is, it's stabilizing slightly to 4.2% in 2026. But again, this outlook isn't without risks. From renewed trade tensions and global debt burdens in advanced economies to climate shocks and geopolitical shifts, this could easily tip the balance. Zooming into the region, let's look at how Grenada is expected to perform against CARICOM average as well as the ECCU. And when we say ECCU, we're talking about countries within the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, that's like Dominica, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, right? So we see that Grenada is expected in 2025 to grow by 4.2%. At least this is what we see based on the information that we have so far. Again, this will be revised once we get further information during the course of the year, but given the data that we have today, we're expecting about a 4.2% growth. And if we look at CARICOM, CARICOM is expected to grow on average, CARICOM countries, by 3.3%. So Grenada is performing relatively well compared to the regional average. And then if we look even closer to home, that's in the ECCU, in 2025, the ECCU average is expected to grow by 3.5%. So Grenada is performing relatively strong compared to its partners, its regional partners. In the medium term, Grenada is forecasted to average growth each year of about 3%, which is quite welcoming as it's relatively stable growth. Now we're going to go into some more specific details on how each of the sectors performed in Grenada. So we're going to look at the agriculture sector, tourism, construction, etc. In the agriculture sector, we, of course, expected this, but in the agriculture sector, most of Grenada's export crops, such as nutmeg, maize, and cocoa, they continue to feel the brunt of Hurricane Beryl. As we can see from the data presented here, nutmeg production declined by 77.6%, maize 79%, and cocoa by 19.3%. Even M&IB purchases of other crops, that's our lettuce or tomatoes, etc., declined by 11.8%. But notwithstanding, there is some glimmers of hope, glimmers of recovery, and this is based on the growing patterns of crops, specifically in banana production. We see that banana production increased by 1.6%, which suggests to us that there is hope in the future with targeted investments and building resilience into the agricultural sector. Fish production, on the other hand, is rebounding at a slightly faster pace, as in we're seeing a lot more growth in the fish production sector compared to the agriculture sector. As we can see, fish production in 2025 increased by 1% and exports increased by 1.1%. So in 2025, as you know, in 2024, as you know, there was some climate-related issues. Particularly, we saw a lot of drought during the first quarter of the year. There was a lot of hot sun, etc. And in 2020, and later on during the year, of course, Hurricane Beryl happened, and fish production, of course, declined because fisher folk were unable to go out and fish as they accustomed to. But in 2025, of course, with government support, etc., we're seeing a lot more activity in this area. Fisher folk has gone out and started fishing, and so we expect to see considerable improvement, and of course the data relays that we see a lot more fish production in 2025. In the construction and mining sector, of course, we see a lot of strong performance in this area, and of course this is driven primarily because of reconstruction activities post-Hurricane Beryl. One of the things that we use to measure construction sector is the imports of construction material and retail sales of building material, as well as looking at mining and quarrying. When we look at the imports of construction material, we see, of course, it increased by 78.8%. Although in 2025, we saw that retail sales of building material declined by 30%. And you may be asking why this occurred. Why did retail sales of building material decline by 30%? What we noticed, and from our consultations during our macroeconomic surveillance, is that there was a lot of urgency for materials. So people went and get their materials directly from its source markets. So if it is that they needed lumber, some persons may have gone to Trinidad, etc. So we saw a lot of importation of construction material. And so in the domestic market, where retail sales of building material is had, there was a decline of 30%. Of course, in mining and quarrying, given reconstruction activity as well, we saw an increase of about 10%. And of course, because of public investment projects that we have on the ground, we have the G-Cruise project, we have the UK SIF project, and all of those activities are driving growth within the construction and mining sector. Also, we have some private projects on the ground. We have the Grenada National Resort. We have the Intercontinental Hotel. All of these private investment areas are pushing up construction in 2025. Looking at the tourism sector, we notice that stay-over arrivals in almost all source markets decline. And this is not a true decline. This is what we call base effects. In 2024, we had Carifta Games. We had the 50th anniversary of independence. We had so many activities ongoing in 2024, so many visitors coming to Grenada in 2024, that we had an astronomically high stay-over arrival numbers. When we look at 2025, it's really a normalization of this, you know. But one of the areas that stood out for us quite a bit is other. This is stay-over arrivals in other markets except US, UK, Canada, the main source markets. And what this tells us is that Grenada is becoming more prominent in other areas, in areas outside of the usual source markets, which is very encouraging. When we look at cruise passenger arrivals, we actually saw an increase in cruise passenger arrivals of 17.2%. So these are all very encouraging, despite the fact that we see that decline. But again, it's not a true decline, it's what we call base effects, all right? It's a normalization from 2024. When we look at the wholesale and retail trade sector, we noticed that it recorded a strong growth in the start of 2025. Retail sales rose by 13% in the first quarter compared to the same period last year. Growth, of course, was driven by higher sales in food items, household goods, local produce, and vehicles. We know we've seen a lot of new vehicles on the road. This points to a steady consumer demand across the country. Again, we look at the retail sales of building materials and we say, while sales of construction materials fell, likely due to the bulk sourcing, as we spoke about earlier on, retail activity outside of construction remains strong. With domestic spending holding firm, as in higher domestic spending, the sector is expected to stay on track and grow by about 5% this year. The transport and storage sector is a sector that's affected by different sectors. So if we have strong construction activity, we're importing larger amounts of construction material, so we'll have larger quantities of cargo coming into our country. If we are exporting more, we'll be having lots of cargo going out of our country. So, and this is on the manufacturing side. So this sector is affected by all the different sectors. If we look at tourism, again, in embarked and disembarking, we see that persons who embarked from Grenada, it declined in 2025, and this again is because of the high activity in 2024. People coming to Grenada, people leaving Grenada. And then we see the same picture when we look at persons disembarking. Inflation. Why do we need to pay attention to inflation when we talk about the budget? Well, inflation is really the general rise in prices. That's what it is. So we monitor this because we want to know whether or not the monies that we're projecting to spend in a particular year will be enough to cover its cost of the project or cost of the intervention. Inflation for January to May, we saw that food inflation in particular when we look at the period average, and this is basically the average inflation from January to May. Looking at each month, what was the inflation? That's what we call the period average inflation. And so we see that food inflation in 2025 was 1.4%. So that means prices in respect of food grew by 1.4% on average. Fuel, we saw a 0.4% decline or deflation. And this is because, recall, in the previous periods, government would have implemented measures in respect of the petrol tax. Remember, government lowered petrol tax, so the cost of fuel is quite lower in this period. When we look at the overall picture, we see that inflation only grew by 0.5% because, of course, fuel inflation has a high weight on the overall inflation. In respect of the labor force and the labor market, we saw that unemployment fell in 2020 from 2020 to 2024. In 2020, the unemployment rate was 28.4%, and this fell to 12% in the third quarter of 2023. When we disaggregate this, when we look at the unemployment rate for men and women, we actually see that unemployment for women was higher at 15.8% and men 7.4%. Youth unemployment remains relatively high at this time based on the data that we have. It stands at 22.8%. And this is because of several different reasons, according to the labor force survey. We saw illness being one, disability being another, several other issues that really constrains youth unemployment. But I guess this is the opportune time for us to discuss this. How can we support this? How can we ensure that more persons are empowered to be employed, etc.? So hopefully this can be a major or a focus area for our discussions tonight. Moving to the fiscal performance. Again, as we said, fiscal is revenue and expenditure, right? Very simply put. If we look at January to May 2025, we saw that total revenue and grants exceeded its target. So government targeted to collect 525.2 million, and it actually collected 527.3 million. So that's 22.1 million over what it targeted. Tax revenue outperformed expectations by 3.5%. And now we zooming in. We're going from total revenue and grants to total revenue, and now we're looking specifically at tax revenue. This outperformed expectation by 3.5%. And this was driven primarily because of the strong compliance efforts that we saw from the Inland Revenue Department, and of course enhanced collections from Customs and the Excise Division. Of course, economic activity is a major driver of this as well. And as we can see from the first half, from the projections that we have for the full year 2025, growth is expected to be 4.2%. So all of these things will drive tax revenue in 2025. On the non-tax revenue side, we saw that it grew by 5.7% over what we had targeted. And this was primarily driven by the Investment Migration Agency, which is what we called before CBI, Citizenship by Investment Program. In contrast, we saw that grant receipts fell short by 48%. When we look at total expenditure, we see that total expenditure reached 541.6 million at the end of May 2025, and that was about 8% below target. This was driven mainly by lower than expected recurrent expenditure spending. And what is recurrent expenditure spending? It's our everyday spending, employee expenditure, goods and services, that sort of thing. So our recurrent expenditure totaled 377.6 million, falling short of our target by 12%. The largest gap that we noticed was in goods and services, which was about 24% below target. Employee compensation also underperformed by 18%, and only current transfers on the recurrent expenditure exceeded its target. And then what is current transfers? Current transfers is our pensions, it's our NIS payments, that sort of thing. Capital expenditure amounted to 164 million, slightly above target, pointing to improved execution in project implementation and improved spending in that area. Still, performance across projects remain uneven. Some projects are performing stronger than others. So when we take a look at the overall picture, and this is our total revenues and grants minus our total expenditure, we have these two indicators here, primary balance and overall balance. Primary balance is simply put our total revenues and grants minus our expenditure less interest expense. Interest expense is the interest that we pay on loans, just like everyone pays interest on their loans, similar. So when we look at our primary balance after grants, we see that we have a primary a primary surplus after grants of 2.8 million, which is 107% above target. When we look at our overall fiscal balance, that is our total revenue minus our total expenditure, so this time we're including interest expense, it was a fiscal deficit of 14.3 million, which represented a 77.9% actually improvement over what we had targeted. So we targeted when we set out our budget and we planned our expenditure for each of the months up to May, we planned that we would have had a deficit of, overall deficit of 64.6 million. But when we actually spent and when we actually collected revenues, what we saw is that we had an overall balance of negative 14.3. So that was a far greater improvement than what we expected. Looking at our estimated outturns for the full year 2025, and what is our estimated outturns? Our estimated outturns are the actual performances up to May of this year, and then what we project to collect, as well as what we project to spend in the next couple of months. What we see is that our overall fiscal deficit for 2025 is going to be estimated at 287.2 million, and the primary balance after grants, remember we spoke about primary balance and overall balance, that's projected to register a deficit of 161.5 million. These estimates, of course, will be shaped by government's implementation of a suite of fiscal measures designed to accelerate recovery in the Sister Isles and northern Grenada following Hurricane Beryl. In this context, reduced tax collection stemming from targeted waivers and elevated capital expenditure tied to reconstruction are expected to weigh on this fiscal position. To accommodate these extraordinary needs, the temporary suspension of the fiscal rules has allowed greater policy flexibility. And what is the fiscal rules? Does anyone know what the fiscal rules are? The fiscal rules is basically a set of rules enshrined in law that government is supposed to achieve. One of the major laws is that by 2035, government is to achieve a debt to GDP ratio of 60%. And then we have a primary balance rule. Our primary balance rule states that government is to achieve a surplus of 1.5% of GDP. Yeah? So because government wanted to accelerate recovery, to respond effectively to natural disasters and the occurrence of Hurricane Beryl, government temporarily suspended those rules. Notwithstanding our fiscal position in 2025, the public debt to GDP ratio remains favorably because it's on a downward trend. At the end of March 2025, public sector debt was estimated at 67.5% of GDP, with central government debt projected to reach 54.1%, a downward trend from 71.3% in 2024. With this context in mind, let's take a look now at our medium-term outlook. What do we project growth will be in 2026, 2027, and 2028? As we look ahead to 2026 and beyond, Grenada's growth outlook is steady and reassuring. Though we expect a moderated pace following a strong rebound in 2025, real GDP is projected to grow by about 3% on average over the medium term, with a slight dip in 2027. Agriculture, still climbing back from the devastation of Hurricane Beryl, is projected to remain on a positive path. While gains are expected to taper out as output stabilizes, the outlook is encouraging, suggesting that replanting efforts, irrigation support, and investments in food security are starting to yield results. In the construction sector, construction continues to lead the pace, powered by major public and private investment projects. The rollout of the Build Back Better program, alongside strategic infrastructure development and investment like the new teaching hospital, we expect that this sector will continue to show strong growth through to 2028. In the tourism sector, we see that tourism is gradually finding its new rhythm. Following an exceptional year in 2024, sectoral growth is expected to normalize but remain positive, supported by improved airlift, expanded room stock, and signature events such as Carifta Games in 2026. In the wholesale and retail trade sector, growth is forecasted to hold firm. This will be driven by consistent consumer demand and supported in part by activity in the construction and tourism sector. Private education remains a stable contributor to the economy, though we see that enrollment...
There are so many moving pieces in education, and that's why we have the budget consultation too, because we need to understand the priorities as people see them, but then the technocrats will tell you there are several other pieces that are always fitting in, and there are always more questions than answers. In fact, the whole basis of economics is scarcity, is because there's a lot more need than there is money to be able to meet all the needs. And so we have to always be engaging in what is the greater priority, which one is more needful at the time. And so yes, we recognize there are always needs, and that's why we have you as part of the mechanism, the school maintenance mechanism, to do exactly that. But we are committed to working and ensuring, one, the safety of our nation's children, that some of the buildings are really not fit for purpose probably, but we want to make sure that once they're safe enough infrastructurally to accommodate, we work still, but all of the new constructions, we want to make sure they're up to a certain standard, because we have to build for the next 50 years. And so it's a combination of all of these considerations that we take into account to make sure we respond meaningfully and strategically to the very concern that you have raised. And we look forward to continue to collaborate with you to find a genuine, workable, pragmatic solution to the challenge that we face in terms of school infrastructure, but we are committed to doing it, to continuing to doing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister of Education. Is any other comments, questions, concerns, queries? Feel free to come to the mic, and we acknowledge you. Anything you want to see happen in your community, in your district, in your parish, yeah?
My name is Ashley Cummins.
Good
Now,
night.
I have concerns with agriculture.
Just come a little closer to the mic so we can be able to hear you. Just
Maybe
a little-
maybe I'm speaking loud enough.
Go ahead.
I have concerns with agriculture. Yes, we are rebounding nicely. I listened carefully to the presentations, and I realized that we are getting there, but we got a lot of work to do. And in agriculture, particularly the roads. Nutmeg and cocoa is not dead in Grenada, I know that. But I believe if we can put a little more into our roads, especially farm roads, I believe that we can get farmers, much more farmers going out to look after the nutmeg and the cocoa that we really need. The roads is part of it. I realize also that the government had extended the propagating station in Maribo and Boulogne. This is excellent, because it's a very long time. I know farmers have been clamoring and they want to see much more plants. Let me leave that for agriculture. I believe when we're talking health in Grenada, we have to concentrate a lot on health and wellness. And if we look at the amount of our people, especially our aged people, I believe that it's time that we have a program somewhere in the budget to assist these people. And I ain't talking about buying medication for them. I'm talking here about health and wellness, the physical being, programs for these people. I really wish that something like this could happen. My favorite area is sports. But I see Progress Park is lighting up and my heart is lighting up too. The stadium will be lighted soon, I believe too. But I want to ensure that when all this lighting takes place, Madam Minister, we should have a franchise here in Grenada. So cricket. You see cricket? That is my thing. And I really like to see that we'll have a franchise when we talk about our Carifta. Whatever Carifta had injected, I believe having the CPL in Grenada too will inject something here in Grenada. Yeah? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, farm roads, program in health, and lighting and sports. So, who will go first? Head table.
So
Honorable Thomas.
I want to first comment, Mr. Cummins, for the not really questions. You know, you made some observations. Wellness falls under the Ministry of Mental Health, and before the end of the year, we are rolling out a program, a community-based program, where what you talk about will be dealt with, because we appreciate that there are a number of even young children who are obese. We also have adults with chronic illnesses like high blood pressure and diabetes, and we know that keeping fit is part of wellness. So that program will provide support, and support means maybe advice, education on what to eat, but also physical activity at the level of the community. So very soon you will hear of this program, and it might just be close to you. And I know as somebody who is involved in sports, you will be part and parcel in that initiative. The issue of Progress Park and the lighting, so you are correct that we are already completed Progress Park. We have completed last suggest, and the National Cricket Stadium is ongoing at this time. So it's government's policy, or the priority of this government, to upgrade playing facilities across Grenada. So that's just the start of more development. And I do not want to talk about Progress Park here, because in 2 weeks from now, we'll have a national consultation in St.Andrew on the development of Progress Park and overall sports in St.Andrew. So Mr. Cummins, that is coming, and so you'll get the information so that you can be a part of it. As it relates to franchise, I do not have an answer to that one at this time, but it's something that we can look at together to ensure that you know, we bring more development and cricket in Grenada. You spoke of Carifta. Next year again, so almost back to back, because 2024 we had Carifta. Next year, please God, we'll also have Carifta in Grenada again, and there are some other major sporting events. So I'm not the one to announce, I don't want to take the organizers take in front and take a thunder. So, but you'll hear there will be a lot of other major sporting activities that will be happening in Grenada in 2026. I hope I do capture everything you ask.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Thomas. Honorable Andrews?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Cummins. But Mr. Cummins, you must tell the full story. You know, last week, when I addressed the Grenada Cocoa Association, you stood up there and you made the point about fixing the agricultural roads. And you mentioned to me the one in Parkley that leads down Grand 4, right. Shortly after the meeting, Mr. Cummins, you remember me and watched the road, right? We went and watched the Bolong Road. We call it Bolong Road, in the back of Parkley there, right? So, and I promise you, I go fix that road. Ain't it? Yeah, I promise you I go fix that road. So we go fix that road. But apart from that, there are many other agricultural roads and farm roads in Grenada that need fixing and need fixing quickly. So right now, I have a small contractor. He's doing some road maintenance, farm road maintenance for us. So for example, he has just completed some maintenance at the Dry River Road up in Bellevue side up there. I asked him to do some in Spring. I asked him to do some maintenance for me in Spring Road, right, without cities. There are many farmers up there. And in Hope, there are some maintenance road we have to do. In fact, we have to build a bridge. In Good Hope, in St. George's, we're doing some work as well. In Granton, we did the Granton Road in Willis. We have a next road there to do. So we have a number of farm roads that we have identified that we're going to try and tackle. If not this year, as early, well, after the budget is read next year. So we are fully aware of the situation facing farm roads in Grenada, and we are moving to address this situation as quickly as we can so that our farmers can have easy access and get to the land to work as they should. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Honorable Andrews. Any other comments, suggestions? So Minister Thomas has indicated that there will be a national consultation in St. Andrews on Progress Pack, and that's in 2 weeks, so you can mark your calendars for that. And Minister Andrews highlighted that there are several roads, farm roads, that will be and is ongoing in terms of construction and upgrading. So I hope that answers your questions or concerns. You can go ahead, sir.
Evening to the table. I'm Papi. I want to suggest that we should have an agro-industry complex. If you look at inflation, right? Inflation is rising, and we're talking about youth employment. When we have scholarship, everybody going abroad, right? And come back with doctorate, the government has to employ them. I believe we should put things in place for self-employment, right? For example, okay, you have a complex, agriculture complex, right? You could sell dry tanya. You dry tanya, you grind it. I might want a little tanya log. I go to the supermarket and I buy a packet of tanya, right? You could do the same thing with the saffron. For example, look at Trinidad. Burn all we raw material and we come back with it and we pay more for and we have to pay more for it. So I believe that the government should look deeply into that. Look the thing about it, not only that the government, when you send them for a scholarship, you come back to the government. They should send people for scholarship to come back for self-employment. For example, right? Not only abroad that you give scholarship, you have local people that are doing things, right? That you could send people by them to see how to do it, to learn how to do it. So I believe we should go local. For example, if you look at this situation now, right? Where we be targeted by the superpower, they're looking at with financial status, right? So I believe we should look every penny build an economy. Right? Every penny counts in an economy. So I believe we should look into our agro-processing plant and try to get employment for the younger people.
Thank you so much for that suggestion. Agro-processing complex.
All right.
Minister?
So Papa, thank you. Papa, whatever it is, doesn't matter. We know who we're referring to. Yeah, so, Papi, we're doing just that, We're doing just that right now. If you want, I could take you to Lacaloom in St. David's, where we are constructing right now an agro-processing plant. It's a multi-purpose agro-processing plant. And I am a bit annoyed with myself because I really wanted that thing to get started since the beginning of this year. All right? So, the physical building is being repaired, ensure that it is sufficiently strong and ready, right? The outside, the external works have been completed. The equipment is already here in Grenada because they were part of our World Bank 27 million EC dollars food security project. So the equipment is already here on land in Grenada. Good? So we intend to set up the plant and get it operational very early in 2026. Now, I was a little bit unhappy because when I watched the projections for agro-processing, for manufacturing, for 2026, I saw about a 1.4% growth. And I was saying to myself, I will have to talk about this because when the plant gets operational, we are expected to see a much better performance in terms of agro-processing for 2026. Yeah? So the intention is to train our young people in agro-processing. Good? At the Produce Chemist Laboratory, what they will do is that they will decide on the technical mix of the agro-processing. Good? And the actual production is going to take place at the plant itself. Good? So we hope that plant can get up and running very early in the new year. I would want to have a nice big opening ceremony and make a big thing out of it. Good? So that, everybody knows about it. But we're doing just that. And we hope we can get it done much faster. So it can start operational very early in 2026. So, Papi, thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Minister. Any other comments, suggestions? So,
Let me, just before you go, I just want
sorry.
to add, and you can come, but I think the gentleman asked about scholarships in targeted areas, and I want to assure you as well that the government is doing exactly that. We have a national scholarship policy that has been brought before the cabinet for preliminary approval, and that national scholarship policy is going to target the key areas that drive the Grenadian economy to ensure that we send persons to get trained in those areas so that they will be competent and capable to find employment in those areas so we wouldn't have the kind of levels of unemployment among young persons, and they'll be better skilled and able to be self-employed as well. Just as recently as Monday gone, we had a presentation for Cabinet's discourse to talk and fine-tune that very scholarship policy that targets who gets to go study financed by the government, to what extent, through what pathway that they get to go study in what areas, and all of that is currently and actively being pursued by the government. So we're listening, we're hearing, and it just confirms to us that what you're thinking and what we are already doing aligns well, and we just have your confirmation that we are going to continue to pursue it vigorously. Thank you for that.
Before you speak, I also want to mention that the government of Guyana has given us 9 scholarships. 9 scholarships. So right now we're looking for 9 young people to go to Guyana come September. We already have 9 there studying. They are here on holidays now. Good? And it's a 2-year program. And as I said, we're looking for young people now to send them to Guyana come September. Good? There is scholarships in specific areas. Some of them can in fact be doing agro-processing if they so desire. Good? But of course, we also want some to do livestock, and we also want others to do agronomy. So right now we're looking for 9 people, 9 young people from Grenada to go to Guyana. Scholarships.
So if they're interested, they can contact the Ministry of Agriculture.
They contact the Ministry of, Education, and of course Agriculture. Yes.
Okay, so if you're interested in to be a part of that 9 persons who will be heading to Guyana, you can contact the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Agriculture for further details on that. Yes, ma'am?
Good night to the head table. I am Donna, and my concern is in health. And most times we say it's okay until the situation hits you, and I'm talking from my experience. What I would like to see in the budget, so much young people going to study to become doctors. When they come back, it's just as a general practitioner, is to have specialists. Because right now, there isn't much of specialists for certain illnesses on island you have to travel abroad. And with every time the tickets, the amount of appointments you have to pay a copay. Nothing is free. And I think when the government is giving out scholarships to young people going to study medicine, or even those that has already qualified as a doctor, hold some sort of
Specialization.
to ask to let them specialize, because we don't have an endocrinology specialist in Grenada. First thing, we don't even have a proper operating theater in the hospital to do certain surgeries. I've seen that we got 2 other anesthesiologists, which is good, because for the past years, it's how you would call it, in the butcher shop, you have one man doing everything. One anesthesiologist. What if the patients have a crisis? Sometimes a patient could wake up mid-surgery, and you have to scuttle around. One anesthesiologist, you would have surgery, they schedule one for today, you have to wait the next 6-7 days, because he alone can do everything. So please, Minister of Health, whenever the young people come in for scholarships, if they can't go to specialize, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, because right now the trend is everybody making a motorcade to go get specialized treatment. And I can tell you from my experience, seeing the people coming with a list, they want a donation. It doesn't make sense. And I've been working for years. I've been paying my NIS for years. I was away for medical treatment 9 months. I've given them every bit of document from the hospital. Up to this present day, I haven't gotten 1 penny from NIS. And it's disheartening. It makes me angry sometimes. And NIS is operating as a Ponzi scheme. That's what I could say about it. It's real disheartening. 9 months. And you go to them and they ask me for dates. Every letter from the hospital that I attended, everything have dates. Everything is on electronically transferred from your doctor onto your phone for you. I got everything printed out and I took it to them. And I'm still awaiting NIS to give me some form of compensation.
Okay.
Those are the kind of things, those are those kind of situations that would send somebody going through certain problems, you would turn them into a criminal. Thank you.
Empathize with you, and thank you so much for your comments. Minister of Education.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing. I mean, what you shared, the latter part of your sharing is not something we feel happy to hear. And probably I invite you to talk with one of us at the end. And we'll probably, the minister who is responsible for NIS was here, Senator Gloria Thomas, and she had to leave. We probably will relay to her, and hopefully we can follow up that matter a little bit more, at least to understand it, because I'm not sure we understand it all clearly. Right. So in relation to the other, you mentioned about the scholarships, and I want to assure you too, we have been sending persons to specialize. We've sent at least 2 persons to specialize in Guyana for different areas of specializations. I can't tell you the ones right now. We have persons in Cuba specializing. We have approved a number of other persons and to do areas of specializations in medicine. We are projecting and we are planning, knowing full well that we are aiming at having the new state-of-the-art teaching hospital and the medical village that we are developing. And so we are planning with that in mind. But the reality is, it's not, you don't get a specialist overnight. It takes a number of years to get them trained and for them to complete their rotations. And so even if we start them now, you probably wouldn't feel the effects that they can bring until the next couple of years. But we are doing that actively, one, and there are other administrative things that we are doing to help increase the quality of healthcare across the island. We focus on primary healthcare, for instance, and the plan to refurbish the health centers so that primary healthcare is a lot more readily accessible, and even having the Mount Sinai team here to ensure that the best practices in the healthcare system are aligned to what obtains in the best institutions in the world. That's happening, from simple practices to more complex filing and other practices that will save lives. So we hear you, but one by one we are ticking, and we are certainly sending persons to train for specializations, which we hope will translate into improved and more quality service to our Grenadian citizenry. Thank you.
Yeah, your contribution has been noted and definitely will be passed on to the Ministry of Health. Any other comments, suggestions, concerns? Feel free. The mic in the middle is available. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good night to the head table. My name is Titus Hannibal. I'm very concerned about youths in sports. What I'm saying that sometimes youth, one season you see them doing good, and the next season, because of finance, you don't see them in sports again. I would like for the ministry to invest finance in them so that you keep them like be on West Indies team, like great athlete. You see them now today, and tomorrow they fade away because the finance end day. So I would like for all to invest finance for youths. I'm very concerned. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
So I must say, over the last 3 years, this government has invested a lot as it relates to youth development and youth in sports. So a number of our athletes are receiving support. However, just recently, we agreed to launch a program. It's a public-private partnership, so it's not government alone, because you appreciate that government cannot do it alone. So we have a program that will be launched sometime coming to the end of this month that will assist our young people. So it's called Pathway to Champion. So it will assist young athletes from the primary and secondary and even the tertiary education to provide them with level of support, mentorship, training, provide school uniforms and other support. So that will be launched in short order, and we'll look at other ways in which we can provide support for our young people in sports.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. So far, so good. We're going good, guys. Love the suggestions. We have spoken about sports. We have been talking about manufacturing, agro-processing, health, and so on and so forth. I want to hear more from you, so feel free to come to the mic and give your suggestions.
Hello, good evening. I am Michael Francis. And look at agriculture and other things. I always think that agriculture will remain with us for a long time as the breadbasket. And I think that when I look around, I understand why maybe agriculture in the state, we're not producing the amount, especially in cocoa and nutmeg, which is our main crop. And I sell farmers. I remember when Beryl passed, farmers say they're done with cocoa, they're done with nutmeg. I say, listen to me. Nutmeg and cocoa is the only two crops you're sure you have market for. And we should still encourage and plant them things. But when you look at the amount of abandoned lands, we need to see how we could get people to go back and work their land. I don't think government have to, I hope it's not to say to give them money or pay for their work. It have to come from within us. So farmers have to come from within us to decide to work the land. That's your job, that's where your profession, that's where you get your money from and everything. So I don't see any push from, let's say, government. Yes, government have to do something to help because it goes into the economy, it helps the economy and everything, but it have to come from within us. And so much of these lands, I knew there was a land bank, I don't know if it's still around, where people with abundant lands who will give their land to the bank. There's an organization within, give the land to the bank, and people come to the bank and lease or rent land for a certain period of time. So if that could be reorganized, I don't know if it's a thing, or we could step up on it more and advertise it, let people know what is there out there. So there's a lot of people who want to work land still, right? So we could get them to go back to the land. There's a lot of lands that is just idle, just there. Some people just go and pick up nutmeg, go through the bushes, get what they get, and that's it. So we need to do something better than that. The other thing, I remember when I was going around, visiting the Maribor Agricultural Station. It was Maribor Agricultural and Research Center, Agricultural Station. I feel we need to do some more researches in it. When I was in farm school, a lot of the things we used to do in farms was go and do research. Dr. Buckmeyer, he died now, may he will rest in peace. I remember he used to be the agronomist. So a lot of experiments on a lot of things in Maribor. Get the best quality planting material for farmers and things, so we could go back to that. Let Maribor be again a research center. And there's a lot of things Grenada could use. A lot of things we could grow. A lot of things that come in here. We may not be able to plant to export, but if we could plant it and use it here, the money we have to get to export will stay here. So we'll use the thing here so the money will stay here and it'll help the economy. I remember during the revolution, Maribor was a place where I used to grow a lot of what we call the white potato. Well, I used to see pink ones too. So the orange type potato. A lot of this potato. So this thing you grow here, all this, we may not be able to produce the amount to feed everybody. Once we could cut back on the importation, that's money that could stay here. So we need to look at those things, agriculture, and see how we could keep some of our money here. And it's healthier eating cassava. Cassava is an excellent root crop. Excellent. I know some of the problem in it because it doesn't keep too long. You know, places like America, they wax it on them places, right? So we could use, let's go on a cassava thing. I remember in Extension, when you saw World Food Day, we used to promote cassava. We used to promote goat's milk. Getting children to get accustomed drinking goat milk and them certain. I remember we did one. We used to do goat milk. We used to make snow ice with it. I remember as children used to scramble for those milk. Goat and snow ice and the goat milk. We make this the snow ice and we make the goat milk to make snow ice and everything. And in no time it finished. But we keep on saying children don't like that. Because we don't like it, we say children don't like it. If you want anything to move fast, start it with children. The other thing I want to talk about is Grenville. We need to see Grenville develop as one of a second town or so. I don't like to see how Grenville looking. So in the long-term plan, we have to come up with a plan for Grenville. Yeah, definitely have to come for a plan to Grenville. Yeah. Definitely. That's now for all for now.
Thank you so much. Head table, Mr. Andrews Thomas.
Well, so thank you very much, Mr. Francis. The passion with which you speak about agriculture is the same passion I have, and I am trying to do quite a lot in agriculture. A fundamental problem we're having is labor for agriculture. It's a problem. How to get people to work. So even if there are a few young people who have an interest in agriculture, they need labor. And labor for agriculture is pretty scarce. Some time ago, somebody said to me that we should import labor specifically for agriculture. So it's a matter for consideration. We do have the land bank. The land bank is there. I think we need to activate it a lot more activate a lot more. So I'll work on that. Maribor is designated as a center for agricultural excellence. And we've been doing quite a lot in Maribor right now. We have a tissueculture plant established. It's going to be operational soon. We have the farm machinery pool. We bring back the farm machinery. Good. We are constructing a hatchery right now in Maribor. We have 2 young, bright agronomists. They were trained. One was trained in China. The other one was trained in Russia. So they are back and they are conducting their research. I asked them for their research program for this year, which they gave me. And they are working with CARDI, Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute. They are working with CARDI to conduct research. I specifically said to them, do some research on yams. Because yam is perhaps one of the best starch, like manioc, one of the best starch. And I say to them, the same way you have potato ready in 2 months, do the research and see if you can get yams being ready in 3 months or 4 months. Right? So they're doing research. The younger lady, she's doing a research on corn right now. She showed to me how she was able to get a lot bigger. A lot bigger. And I said to them that they must document their research so that they can go to regional and international fora and present the findings, and in this way make agriculture the science that it's supposed to be. Yeah. So we do have a research program in place at Maribor. We have the Maribor Farm School, which we are trying to revitalize. This year we put $500,000. Ministry of Agriculture put $500,000 for Maribor Farm School, for us to work together and to see how we can build back and do some more research. We brought in 466 animals, or small ruminants, into Grenada this year. The pigs are in Maribor right now. And if you go there, you'll find them. They're like Doberman. First, they look good. Good? We need more persons trained in livestock. In fact, some of the students we want to go to Ghana this year, we will ask them to focus on livestock, right? So we have that there as well. So I hear you loud and clear. I mean, right now agriculture is in fact rebounding, because presently we have a surplus of plantains on the market. We have a surplus of bananas. We have a surplus of pineapple. We have a surplus of seasoning pepper. And one of the problems I have right now is finding markets for our farmers, because they complain to me every day they ain't getting markets. So I'm developing an app, that would link farmers, the producers, with the buyers. So you could just click on your app, put your products there, and you can find a buyer for your product.
Okay. Thanks so much, Minister Andrew. Just before, okay, go ahead.
I just
and then
forget
we'll take
that.
Minister Andrew.
As you talk about the plantains, I knew there are people who used to go, well, I know of one man in particular. He used to do plantain chips. He used to go and sell in convent and schools and things. And sometime I met him on the airport some years ago, not now, some years ago. And I said, are you still in the plantain chips business? He said, nah. He said they cannot compete with the plantain chips coming from South America because of the cheap labor and the tax they have here to bring in stuff. How they've been taxed on stuff coming into the plantain chip. By the time they mark up, the South American plantain chip would always be cheaper. So they can't compete, so he went out of the market.
We could easily take care of that.
With all the, I say that to say, with all the plantains we talk about and them kind of things, when we get all these lands back to work with planting, making banana chips, plantain chips, cassava chips.
The agro-processing comes in there.
Everything.
Yeah. So we're making some strides, and of course with time we can do a lot more and a lot better. All right? So the budget for 2026 will also focus on agro-processing as well. Apart from the farm rules that we mentioned, we're going to put some money there for agro-processing, and we'll continue with our work with Maribor Farm School to help to build it back. as well as the research that must continue. The research must continue because agriculture is a science. All right? And that aspect of agriculture must be made quite clear. I always say to people who in agriculture, don't call yourself a farmer. Call yourself an agricultural scientist because agriculture is a science. And that's what it is. All right? Okay.
Thank you so much, Minister Andrews. Just before Minister David Andrew comes on, I have a question from online. It says, in regard to specialization, what happens when our youth goes out to study but do not return? Who is responsible for following up and ensuring that there is a return on our investment? So you will speak to that, Minister, as well as the development of Grenville.
Yes, thank you. So let me go with Grenville first. So, Mr. Francis, I think this concerns you as much as it concerns all of us up here as Grenville people who have a high stake in Grenville. We are bothered by it too, but I know that we have some things on stream that will enhance Grenville. You know, well, there's a private development right at the top of Grenville, the Anglican school construction, which we hope will boost the infrastructural appearance. There is also a public-private partnership project, the Grenville Commercial Complex, that is carried to take place, which will span the area where the old library used to be in front of the market, the current market, and go right back to the other street on Ben Jones Street, on Victoria Street, where the revenue of the building was, and the old post office. And that is going to take place in collaboration, it's taking place in collaboration with the Grenada Cooperative Bank as the financier and the government of Grenada. It's anticipated that it's going to start before the end of the year. Yeah, that's the plan. And it's supposed to house the bank facilities on the ground floor. There'll be parking at the upper floor. We intend to have a library space, so the library will come back in that space, and I think it will house the government revenue offices. So there'll be tenants in that space. So that is likely to transform the aesthetics of Grenville in that regard. They are currently engaging the vendors in the area, they're having a series of meetings with them, exploring the relocation plans because work will have to take place in the areas that they now occupy. So that is one thing. The issue of the flooding is something that we've been looking at. We have been engaging with the Ministry of Infrastructure, and they've had engineers looking and studying the rainfall patterns. We've even had some meetings with some engineers who have they've been looking at it for the last couple of years. When the rain falls, where does the rainwater fall from? What are the catchment areas? And so they've identified areas like Canal, Gladstone Road, and where the water flows, and all of the things that would impact on the flooding issue, so that they can redrain Grenville. But that's a huge project. It's going to take some doing. It's going to take developing catchment areas higher up so the water takes longer to get into Grenville rather than just gushing down. It's going to take encouraging persons to construct the tanks so that the amount of runoff that comes from the roof and onto the roads, into the drains, and straight away into Grenville, that is reduced. So it's a multifaceted plan. I've been privy to a bit of discussion in that regard. I know it's happening, and I'm hopeful that sooner than later we can. And in addition to that, there's a flood mitigation project that's happening from all the way Subies, World Bank, Subies, Marquee, into Telescope, so some of the coastal areas can be further protected. So all of these things will impact positively on Grenville and treating with the flooding issues, but it's taking some time, but we know these are significant projects that will generally transform the landscape in Grenville. So just wanted to put that in. In terms of your second question, we do have a bonding procedure at the Ministry of Education. I think our challenge has been, in most cases, enforcing the bonds. So we have a bonding arrangement where when persons receive scholarships, they are bonded by law to return or pay it back. Admittedly, it makes you pretty unpopular if you tell everybody, you better pay it back if you don't want to stay. There's one particular case where somebody has been out for more than 10 years. They ought to have returned 10 years ago. They're requesting extensions right now. And we're saying, no, come on, you had to return 10 years ago, you got extra specialization, you got this, please come back and serve us. And that's in the healthcare sector, by the way. And the person is wanting to gather further experience. But we know generally what happens. So we said, listen, the bond extension hasn't been granted, so you have the option to pay back if you don't want to come back, or that's a live case right now. So we are trying to enforce a little bit more, because we recognize the need for us to keep our trained persons, the kind of investment that we put into these persons that we train. Ordinarily, somebody ain't getting the money to pay to do medicine easily. When you pay millions of dollars to train people, and because the bucks are bigger somewhere else, they go, it's tough. And so we are reviewing the bonding policy, because admittedly Grenada cannot absorb all of the persons that we train in some sectors. If all of the doctors that we train from SGU, for instance, came to Grenada, I'm sure we may not be able to accommodate all meaningfully. So we have to find creative ways of ensuring that they give back, that they serve, and that is currently a matter under exploration in the current scholarship policy that we're looking at, to revisit the bonding policy to ensure that we do a more creative way of keeping our persons. Additionally, incentivizing persons to remain, because in many cases when you complete study and you come and you work for pittance, or you can work for 4 times more somewhere else, obviously the human nature in you will allow you to just probably stay, make your bond time, serve your 4 years, and as soon as that's finished you go, and then we're back to square one. But we want to find creative ways to incentivize the persons who've completed studies to stay, particularly in the medicine area, in the medicinal area. But we are looking at that. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much, Minister. Andrew, you have a question?
Good night to the head table. I'd just like to make a suggestion on the amount of water that flow into Grenville due to flooding. I could remember when I was much younger, my father used to be saying and talking about the windmill or the pump that used to be located just by the drugs or the bus stand, the old bus stand there. So I like to suggest or recommend, if you get investment, or maybe look at it and see if you could get back that water pump to help eliminate some of the heavy rain flow of water that comes from the neighboring areas into Grenville and go to the sea. Because I could remember that building that occupies that's now Kumar, that was the old nutmeg pool. It was right along that area there. It had one right in front of the drugs and right in the back by Kumar there. So if we could get that system back on, we have to think about it. And we have to analyze what is going on. And I could remember he saying that windmill or water pump that was there did a real good job of getting rid of the water that coming into Grenville. So I think that is a real major thing that we have to look at. Okay. And I think that will eliminate some of the water that is flowing in Grenville right now. Because time and time again, we having the rainfall, we having flooding, all business space getting really tampered with and damaging a lot of goods. So I think that's a real good time that we could step in and look at that to eliminate the situation. Thank you, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you for your suggestion.
That was one of the things that the engineers were looking at as well, as part of the things they considered. So I think you're on point, and it will be factored into the final decisions that they make. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Any other questions, suggestions? And for those of you online, you can ask your questions, you can send in your suggestions. They are being noted and they're recorded, and if there is a question, I will pose it to the ministers on the head table. So in the diaspora and online, feel free to send in your questions. They will be asked. Go ahead, sir.
All right, good night to the head table. My name is Glendon Joseph. With the rising creative industry in Grenada and the government's recognition of its economic potential, are there any plans to add or expand creative industry subjects in school syllabus, such as music production, digital media, fashion design, film, and cultural entrepreneurship, so that students can be better prepared for careers in the growing sector?
Excellent question, Minister Andrews.
Yes. So the answer is a simple yes. And we have already started moves in that direction. A number of things we've done. Within this year, I think it was earlier this year, we distributed instruments to teachers of the creative arts that were trained to integrate creative arts in the delivery of regular education. And we distributed instruments to them so that you could help facilitate music integration and stuff in the education delivery. That has happened. We have also collaborated with a music school, the St.Andrew Learning Center. Government has assisted in the infrastructural development of the school facility with a plan to continuously train music students. In fact, the plan is once they're ready for operation, 15 music scholarships will be given to students, and there'll be a continuous training of music students who will be filtered into the school system as part of the internship with the school, so that music becomes a routine part of the system. Additionally, we are sending persons to study. Only a couple of weeks ago, the cabinet approved 2 scholarships to Edna Manley College in Jamaica, which is one of the leading colleges for the creative arts in the region. And so we're doing a number of things from a number of different angles to strengthen the creative arts offering in the education system. And I know a lot is happening in the Ministry of the Creative Affairs as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. And it's refreshing to hear that the creative industry has been spoken about in almost every single consultation that we have been in so far. So it definitely means that the government has done something right with that initiative. And we want to see more of our young persons and young people take advantage of that opportunity. Any other questions, concerns, queries, comments, suggestions? We have
I even want to add, before we take the next question, even at TAMCC, there's been the introduction of some creative courses for creatives, creative law and scholarships for persons at the level of TAMCC in terms of the creative industry and music and the creative. Yeah? So a lot is happening there in that sector. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night to everybody, to the head tables. My deepest concern tonight is about Tupisa Road. Progress Park, where the piece of slide break at the side of the road. I don't know what plans you have for the piece of road there. And also a piece of road up in Lafayette. Mr. must know about it, where the vehicles go down on the side. One day go on a gentleman's house and the next one go down. After I pass before the old school day. We need to do something about that piece of road there. It's very dangerous. So tonight I ask that we look into this Tupisa Road, please.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Mr. Andrew? Oh, it's noted. Okay, so it's noted. All right, so it's noted. So your suggestion has been noted. Good evening.
Good evening to everybody on your table. My name is Wilmot Mack from Paradise, Cocoa, known as Chocolate City. I have a concern or a question, I don't know if I can answer, about the cultural center in Simon. It's about 3 years or more this project has been going on. And for me, there is no progress on it. The school in Port the Christian Academy started a few months ago, and you could see the progress there already. So I don't know if we could get any answer towards that. The next question I want to ask about is the Tivoli Medical Station. The medical station is in a community center. We are always hearing that we will remove to our other location. I think it is creating a lot of problem for the people in the community because they cannot use the community center near the playing field, because of disturbance. Some of the old people who are not physically okay will have to pay extra to a bus to drop them up there because of the distance away. So I don't know if we could get any clearance on that, please. Anybody could answer.
Thank you so much. Head table, so that's Tivoli Medical Station and the Simus Cultural Center.
So I'm only speaking about the Simon Cultural Center because I'm part of a committee or was part of a committee to ensure that the project go on faster. So I first of all want to place on record our thank you to the contractor who has continued to do work on the facility while there were some other issues. So there were issues in the rising in the price. And so one of the things that came out of that is that the procurement. So the procurement board was saying that because there's so much variation that the price you bid for rise higher than so much higher than what it is now, that they should have gone back out to tender. However, the decision and conclusion is that we will continue to go on with the contract, and they have just finalized that. So you will realize that the contractor was working slow, and that because there were issues and he was keeping the project, just going. But in the next month or so, you will see an increase in the workday because they are now reaching an agreement and finalizing on that. So we should see that this more work happen there, and in the next couple of months, in fact, they are saying to us by next carnival we'll be able to use the cultural center.
Very good. Are we noting the Tivoli Medical
So I
Station?
forget to say that they also have to do a redesigning of the facility in Timon. So there are a lot of issues that create delays, but I want to assure you that this government is committed to completing this facility, because when we develop Progress Park, we do not want to have any more shows there.
Okay, thank you so much, MP Thomas. Are we going to note the Tivoli Medical Station as a point, and will be passed to the line minister? Yeah. So Tivoli Medical Station, the issue there is noted and will be passed to the line minister. We just have about 13 or so more minutes. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, queries, you can do so. You have just about 30 more minutes or so.
Good night to the head table. Good night, everyone.
Night, night.
My name is Barbara Bernard. 3 concerns. I hear that we are including creative arts, all those things into our school curriculum. Our students are already facing 13, 14, 15 subjects on their timetable. When we include the theater arts, we include music, we include several other skill sets, that's several more subjects that they have to pick up. And from the primary school coming to the secondary school, from doing 5 subjects, basically in the primary school, they have to come into the secondary school and face 13, 14, 15 subjects at the Form 1 level. Especially now as it is a must to start history from Form 1, go right up. So that was it was 13 before, must history, even more now. So we need to do some long-term planning for vocational technical schools in Grenada. It's time we are pushing for our creative arts. We're pushing for more skill set. Governor Timothy Antoine spoke about it years ago, about the need to push for more skill set because that is what it is out there now. And we need to start considering building or having a technical school and a vocational school in Grenada. Not just one. We can consider turning at least, because when you look at it, primary school students are now getting the opportunity. Everybody gets to go to a secondary school. Our ratio of secondary schools to primary school, or secondary schools are way less than our primary schools, and everybody gets to go to a secondary school. A lot of our children are very much leaning into the skill set. A lot of them are into sports. So maybe we can consider making a secondary school more skill set than a regular school, so that these students who are more skill set can go to those schools, can gravitate towards those schools, and so they have an opportunity to focus on it rather than the regular schools having such a heavy curriculum to deal with. The condition of Grenville, the tongue of Grenville, the infrastructure in Grenville. It has had work done on the road, And the little holes that was made in our new sidewalks, that makes no sense because the sidewalks are more hazardous than walking in the road right now. Those holes no longer exist. So there's hardly any or no surface runoff in Grenville. Tonight while I was passing in Grenville, every time a vehicle passes, I have to stand up and jump off the sidewalk somewhere else to ensure that I don't get splashed. There is hardly any surface runoff. It seems as if the last fixing up, patching that was done, I don't know if they use the wrong mix, but it's running off the road, basically. The mix is not staying on the road anymore. And so the condition of the road in the town of Grenville is horrible. We are in the rainy season, it's about to get worse. So the sooner we can address the condition, the lack of surface runoff, I don't know how you're going to do it. God bless you and the ideas to come up with it. I can't suggest anything. I have no solutions. But that needs to be addressed. The sidewalks also need to be addressed. We can't have an influx and increase in tourism and all our activities that's going on, and it's such a hazard to walk in the town of Grenville. Lastly, when will the school bus program reach St. Andrews? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, head table. I think Minister Andrew,
Yes.
school bus.
Well, so I'll start at the bottom first. The school bus, that was announced as a pilot. I have not gotten any analysis or any result of the pilot yet. So we await that. And I imagine once we have that, they would have a wider rollout and they would have guidance as to how it would roll out, what may be the cost implication and that kind of stuff. But we don't have that yet. We await that, and I think that will be a significant solution towards some of the transport issues that people have as students. In relation to Grenville, I mean, I know that, and we're going to continue to have that be part of the discussion with the Chief Technical Officer, who himself is from Grenville, in relation to the concerns raised. I noted them. But I'm aware, too, that all of the challenges with the sidewalks, it's going to be misaligned if we try to fix the sidewalks without dealing with the drainage. You know, so all of these things kind of interplay, and I probably just have to beg for some patience. By the meantime, we'd have to make sure it's sufficiently safe that it doesn't put our pedestrians too much at risk while we wait on this plan. So I hear you, and the aspiration is to ensure that we make it usable and user-friendly enough that it doesn't jeopardize people while we wait on the more permanent fix for the flooding and stabilizing the sidewalks and stuff, because all of it would have to be redone ultimately, but we just have to make sure it's done properly when that happens and not remake the same mistake that was made prior to elections as it happened then. To the most substantive issue of the issue of skills. Now, what you said is what we are doing, actually, because when we talk of centers of excellence, we also talk about mainstreaming skills. And by this we mean making skills a primary option in the school system. The plan is that by third form, once we get those centers going, that by third form, students will have the opportunity to pivot into one of those, either they go stay in the mainstream general education, or they can go into one of those centers of excellence. But of course, we have to get the centers of excellence going and the skills in those areas. And we have about 7 areas, including sports, but we have started with 4. So we're talking agriculture. Minister talked about the Maribor Farm School. That's going to be one center of excellence. We're talking about marine studies and boat building, fishing, and all of those things. That's going to be another one. We're talking about the hotel and tourism industry and hotel and tourism management. That's going to be another one. And we're talking about construction, furniture, and we're targeting furniture construction, furniture making right now, but it will morph into other specialized areas of construction as we broaden. These 4 areas, we want to have some degree of startup by September 2026. It's probably ambitious. There's a team that's currently working. And when we say center of excellence, we want to make sure that the programs are aligned to international standards. So for instance, we are engaging some of the yachting companies in New Zealand, some of the yachting companies locally, to make sure we have programs and curricula that when persons get trained in boat building, in the yachting industry, they have certification that they can go with anywhere. And that's one of the areas. When we talk agriculture, we are linking with some of the premier agricultural schools, some of them in Canada. And we've had meetings with the chair of council and the principal of TAMCC. And they've had engagements with some of those schools so that you say ECAF? Yes. So some of those schools that are internationally and regionally accredited, so we can adopt some of their programs and know that when we get certification from here, it goes elsewhere. And the programs in agriculture, for instance, will take in modern agricultural techniques, the aquaponics, the apiculture, and some of those other, climate smart agriculture as well, and including the technology in it. So all of these things are being considered and being worked on actively as we speak, and the aim is to have it mainstream into school so that after third form, persons can veer into that. And we hope that that will create an ease so that not all students have to be forced to remain in the mainstream, pursuing things that they have little interest in. So they'll have viable options to pursue. So we're hearing you, and that's the direction we're going in. Even to your point about converting a school, we have engaged one particular school and discussed with the school's board of management the possibility of converting that school. So, and that happened almost about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. And the school board was supposed to have gotten to their regional counterparts and all of that, and because it's not just local. But in the meantime, we are going ahead with the plan. We have to mainstream skills, but all of these discussions we have begun engaging because we see the value in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. And that has elapsed our time. This is our 6th consultation. It's the final consultation on the mainland. So, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, we extend our deepest appreciation to all who contributed successfully to the completion of the mainland leg of the 2026 National Budget Consultation. This consultation series has once again demonstrated the strength of Grenada's democracy processes, where the voice of our citizens, institutions, and communities inform the policies that shape our nation's future. We are proudly grateful to our schools whose administrators, teachers, students provided not only space, but support and also valuable prospects on our country's fiscal policy, touching everyday lives and education. To our speakers, participants, stakeholders who share their suggestions, concerns, constructive critiques, we thank you. Your insight from the backbone of our policy-making process and ensures that our budget remains responsive, inclusive, and people-centered. Specific recognition must also be given to the dedicated internal team within the Ministry of Finance. The Corporate Communications Unit headed by Mr. John ensure that our consultations were accessible, engaging, and well documented. The Budget and Policy Divisions provided technical guidance and expertise, translating complex financial matters into practical decisions, and the wider administration staff giving unwavering support through this process. We are equally thankful to TR Media for their committed, and I hope I have the name right, to the process of transparency and accountability through live streaming the process and in making sure that our folks in the diaspora were able to participate. Their contribution has allowed citizens at home and abroad to witness and participate in this important national exercise, thereby deepening inclusivity and strengthening trust in government. We also extend thanks to all government ministries, caretakers, community groups, churches, stakeholders who attended, listened, contribute with such dedication. Your engagement has made the consultations truly representative of the diverse voices across our parishes. Above all, we thank the people of Grenada who showed up, spoke up, and stood up for a betterment of our community. The success of these consultations rests not only in the halls where they were gathered in, but also in the spirit of partnership that bid us all together. As we prepare to journey to Karakou for the final leg of the consultation, we do so with renewed energy and commitment, confident that the 2026 national budget will reflect the aspirations of our people and the resilience of our nation. Thank you, one and all, for your invaluable contribution. Together, we are shaping Grenada's sustainable financial future together. And on that note, I say thank you to all who have joined us in person and those who are online for participating in the St. Andrew's leg of the National Budget Consultation. Thank you to our ministers for taking the time to join us and stay with us right through to the end. We know that your schedules are extremely busy, and we want to say we deeply appreciate all that you are doing and the work that you continue to do. On behalf of the Ministry of Finance, the Corporate Communications Unit, I bid you a safe journey home. Have a good night, everybody.